Hello everyone. So, I unfortunately did not get to do a review of every episode of Fosse Verdon, and I apologize for that. I had originally planned to, but things just came up and I was not able to do it, so I do apologize for saying that I was going to. And I'm actually really sad that I didn't get to because the show was amazing, honestly. I think they did a great job. It's not easy doing a show about two real people, and doing the people themselves justice. But I think Fosse Verdon really captured so much essence that was Bob Fosse and Gwen Verdon. And I can honestly say that I did not know a lot about them. If anything, this show actually taught me a lot that I didn't know. So, I'm going to review a little bit of the final episode and then the show as a whole. And honestly, the finale almost got to me. I almost cried. Thankfully I didn't, but that ending, very powerful, honestly. And it's because you spend 8 hours, not 8 hours, well, I mean, technically 8 hours, but 8 episodes with Gwen Verdon and Bob Fosse. You get an idea of what their life was like, how they worked together, and then you watch it all come to an end, and it gets to you. But you learn that they did not have the easiest life together. There was love. There was definitely a partnership, and I think the partnership was stronger than the romantic relationship that they had, because that is honestly what triumphed in the end. And that's what you see in the finale. They are completely living their own lives, but occasionally collaborate, and then they finally come together at the end to work on the Sweet Charity revival, and that was their last project together. But you see that they still have that essence that they just had. They were able to think together. They came up with their best ideas together. It was just their thing. So definitely they explored that a lot in this episode. We also see the making of All That Jazz, which, though the character names are different, it basically was a biography about Bob Fosse and his life, which, give or take, may have been a little offensive to some of the real people depicted in it, like Fosse and Verdon's daughter, Nicole. We actually do see her more in this episode, which we have seen her throughout the series, but we haven't focused too much on her. I feel like this episode got to focus a little more on her. And you get to see like the relationship that she had with Bob when she was older as a teenager, and they were dancing together and bonding, which I thought was a nice scene. But then he ends up using that moment in his film, which really bothers Nicole because most of the time he does kind of neglect her. At least what we saw in the show. I can't say 100% that everything is accurate, but as I always say this, a lot of these shows are theory shows. You can't know every move, every word, everything that was done or said. You kind of have to figure out, okay, this happened in their life, what was said, maybe this happened, that kind of thing. But I think with Nicole and Bob's relationship, I can imagine that they didn't have the greatest relationship, at least in some ways. I'm sure they loved each other very much. I'm positive they love each other very much. Just there were times that his work kind of interfered with more of a relationship that they could have had, which we do see that in this episode. And unfortunately it does lead her down a path of drug abuse, which we do see a little bit of that as well. She's hanging out with friends and smoking. She even almost falls off the roof at one point. I don't know if that was true, but I think it was kind of to show that she was in a dangerous place. But yeah, and you see how Bob is connecting with the movie itself, how he wants his life to be depicted. And they show this moment where they're filming like the ending where the character dies, and Bob actually steps in for the character and he's living the moment, almost like living the moment of death, which is, that was a dark scene really when you think about it. But he definitely had a dark side to him. You see that throughout the whole series, especially like when he was making Chicago, he wanted it to be very dark. But it was kind of like he was constantly dealing with his own demons, which a lot of us do. And I honestly never thought I would connect to Bob Fosse. This show showed me that I could connect to him and Gwen Verdon, which you see how they're real people. Whenever you just see their work, you're like, they're these gods. They are these people with this, like, hard to believe talent. And that's honestly how I viewed them before this. I knew a little bit about their lives, and I just didn't know everything. I didn't know all that Gwen went through before she met Bob, or what Bob went through before he met Gwen. Just so much struggle throughout their lives. Even together, maybe their lives were a little bit better together from what they had previously experienced, but they did struggle throughout. Which, that is unfortunately a lot of relationships, but they just had that thing, that one little thing that it took to make this lasting partnership that just created so much art. And you ask yourself, was it worth it? And I'm sure they asked themselves the same question. And I can't say I have an answer for that really, but I appreciate everything that they created for us, especially when you see everything that they went through to do it. Like, without them, we wouldn't have the Chicago that we know, the Sweet Charity, the Cabaret film. We wouldn't have so much. So, despite everything that they went through, I'm grateful at least something good came out of it. Not that it's good to struggle to create art, but that's just how it happened. But yeah, the series finale just, like, wow. They did have a lot to pack into the episode. We did see one of Bob Fosse's good friends, Patty Chayefsky, I think is his name. He is seen throughout the series. He's kind of like that little guy that sits on Bob's shoulder. He was a writer. I believe he did the film Marty, and he did other things as well. But, like in the show, he's mostly like the right-hand man to Bob. He's there to talk to him, to support him in his sense of humor way. But I believe Norbert Leo Butz played him, and he did a great job with the role, honestly. He brought some humor to the show, and he made scenes lighter, which was nice to see. And he was, although he was kind of a little cynical, he was a good friend to Bob. He wanted what was best for him. And unfortunately, we do see that he is the one to pass away first in the show, in real life, actually. And Bob and Patty had made like a bet. You see this in one of the episodes. Whoever dies first, like, one of them's gonna do this and the other one's gonna do that. Bob's was he was gonna perform a tap dance, which you do see him dance at the funeral in a respectful way. So I thought that was interesting to see that. You see that despite all the problems that Bob had, he did appreciate what he had. And when he lost it, he truly showed that he did care for it. So he cared very much for Patty. He was his friend. And I really liked that we saw that human side to him. Patty kind of brought that out of him. So, yeah. And then we see, like I said, we see the Sweet Charity revival, how Bob and Gwen are working one last time. And they are able to do the show. Unfortunately, it's the opening night, I believe, of the national tour, is what it states. And Bob ends up having... She says it's a seizure. I assume... I thought it was a heart attack, but I can't say I'm positive on that one, but he does collapse on the street on the way to the theater, and she's there with him, holding his hand and saying it's okay, everything's alright, and... Oh. See, this is how you bring tears to my eyes. Just that she's there with him. What you think is going to be this tragic death for Bob. It is tragic, but the fact that Gwen is there just makes it a little less tragic. And you see the flashbacks of the meeting, of them working together, and the problems that they had. It's like Bob's life is flashing before his eyes. And just seeing all that, more tears came. And then you learn about what happened with Gwen and Nicole after Bob's death. Gwen did continue on. She did work a little more, and eventually she ended up moving in with Nicole, who eventually did get her life together, and she had a family. She lived out in Vermont, I believe, and just when her mother had moved in with her, she passed away 2 months later. We don't see Gwen's death, but we just see we see that it happened. No, I can't think what it's called. You know that thing where they tell you what happened, you don't see it. Which, I'm glad they didn't show it, because I was already sad. But, yeah, I think the ending was really well done. So, yeah, an epilogue, I believe is what we call it. Sorry, I had to think for a second. So, yeah, let's talk about the show as a whole. So, honestly, the timeline... It wasn't clear at first where it was going, but it ended up working really well for the show. At first, we start with them working on the Sweet Charity film, and basically we just go forward from there. We do get an episode where we see them working together for the first time, which was Damn Yankees, and that episode was really well done, I will say. I think one of the best episodes especially was Me and My Baby. That's what it was called. And that was an episode that was Gwen-centric because it shows what she had gone through to begin her career. She was married before she was married to Bob. She had a son. She unfortunately ended up leaving the son in her parents' care. Her husband was terrible towards her. He basically had raped her and was forced into marrying her. So it wasn't a life that she was meant to live. And she took an opportunity eventually, and she began dancing, and she was able to get on Broadway and have this amazing career. And that episode just really delved well into who Gwen was and who she became. So I thought that episode really did a great job. And throughout the series, we mostly see the current projects that they're working on, like I said, starting from Sweet Charity and moving forward. And you see their dynamic throughout. They worked really well together, except they did have their disagreements, of course. But Bob asks her what her opinion is. He wants to know if she likes things that he's working on. And that's honestly amazing, especially for that time. And just that he cared about her opinion. And she did have amazing ideas to contribute. You see that she actually worked on Sweet Charity, she helped work on Cabaret, and just all of that helped Bob put everything together, which that's amazing. I had no idea that she worked on those films. And Gwen helps, like, she gets Bob into Chicago, and she's trying to keep him as the director choreographer even after he has his heart attack. And she does a lot of work. She carries a lot of just stress on her back, but she did it. Just amazing to see all that she did. And yes, maybe they pushed each other too much sometimes, which does happen. Was it good? Maybe not. But somehow it ended up working out. I don't know how, but they just created such magic together, and it's amazing to see. We also see the many partners that Bob Fosse had, which we get glimpses of a few of them. Mostly just like passing ships in the night, let's say. But one that stuck around for a while was Anne Reinking, and we do see her in a few episodes. She was a caring partner to Bob, and she fairly got along with Gwen. Yes, it was awkward at times, but I mean, how can it not be? But honestly, it surprised me to see how well they got along. And even after Anne stopped seeing Bob, like, they kept in touch, she and Gwen, which, that's rare. But yeah, they cared about Bob, so I think that was the common goal at first. But then there was another thing that they cared about, and that was theater, performing. That was their thing, so I think they found common ground there as well. So that was interesting to see that dynamic too. And Nicole fairly got along with Anne as well. You see them bonding. But there is a point in the show where Nicole wonders how Gwen is okay with seeing Anne and Bob together. And Gwen tells her that she and her father have something that no one else has. Gwen and Bob have something, just to clarify. But I think that's a perfect line to sum up their partnership. It's true. They just had this magic about themselves. Like, when they came together, they were able to produce their best work. So, just, like I said, amazing. And as far as, like I said, the timeline worked well. I think mostly because we have explanations about what's going on. They explain what's going on, what the show is, what the time is, the year, how many years left Bob has, how many years left Gwen has. And I think that helped the timeline, honestly. Sometimes just a little cue card with an explanation is all you need. So, yeah, just, in my opinion, it worked. I was able to follow the show. I didn't have any trouble figuring out where we were in the timeline. And it ran really smoothly, I thought. So I commend them for that. Also, hair and makeup team, my goodness. They hit that nail with a hammer right there. I only saw Gwen Verdon. I didn't see Michelle Williams. Her performance as well, just amazing. Like, she became Gwen. And I just felt like I was watching Gwen Verdon live her life. So, seriously, kudos to Michelle Williams, because that performance, Emmy-worthy. I really feel like she has a good chance to win an Emmy on this. Just brilliant performance. Voice, style, everything just captured so well by her. I'm in awe. And then Sam Rockwell playing Bob Fosse. the fact, well, also hair and makeup team made him look young, showed him older, just amazing. And Sam's performance as Mr. Fosse, just really well done. He captured all the struggles, and he did some of the dancing too, and he captured Bob Fosse as well, and you could see them there almost as if they were alive today. Just honestly amazing, phenomenal performances. So I think they both have a good chance of Emmy nominations, and fingers crossed for the both of them. And the show as a whole as well, just amazing, guys, honestly. If you haven't watched this show, and I hope you have because I spoiled so much for you, but if you haven't seen all of it, please watch it because it is amazing. And they don't do too many Broadway-related TV shows because most of Broadway is just on the stage. But they showed so much that goes on in reality of theater. Like Thomas Kail, who was the director, he tried to capture so much of what Broadway is actually like. And I loved seeing that world open to us. Like, there's things that I didn't know, and now I know. And I love learning about these things. And Lin-Manuel Miranda also produced. He was also Roy Scheider in the last episode, that went past me. So, kudos to him on that. And yes, everybody did a great job. So, please, I would give this show, honestly, a 10 out of 10, which I rarely do. I enjoyed it thoroughly. Alright, guys. I'm sorry that I didn't get to do the videos for each episode. I apologize. But hopefully I will be doing more videos at some point. I don't know which show I'm doing next exactly, but definitely Outlander when that comes back, but I think that's not till 2020, so keep that in mind. Maybe some Netflix shows I will do. Alright, guys. It's been a blast. Have a great night, great day. Bye.